Hello everyone, Lewis Hanzo here, and welcome back to Bardock's Odyssey, or as you know it better, what if Bardock went with Goku to Earth? Now, in our last century, Bardock prepared the Z-Warriors as best as he could, but due to having gotten rusty with actual battles, there were casualties. Ten Shinhan, Krillin, Chiaotzu, and Kakarot. Bardock's youngest son had made the ultimate sacrifice and thrown himself in the path of a galactic gun meant to slay his father. However, despite managing to lay Vegeta low, Kakarot's final words were for his father to spare his killer. Thus, Vegeta was allowed to escape, barely hanging on himself. However, Mr. Popo has revealed that there is hope. A solitary hope. On Kami's homeworld of Namek, there are more Dragon Balls. In 3 days, Popo would take him to the ship Kami came in. In the interim time since the last battle, Kakarot and the others' bodies were placed in preservation capsules at Capsule Corporation, so their bodies would not deteriorate. Bardock had closed himself off from everyone and had actually taken off to contemplate. Meanwhile, Raditz had set off to speak with anyone that could aid the journey and the battle to come. This journey had taken him to Capsule Corp and to the door of one Dr. Briefs. However, as he landed, he could not help but notice some individuals wearing a variation of his armor. Were they soldiers or peacekeepers? It made no matter for the Saiyan as he walked straight into the building. "Dr. Briefs," said Raditz, walking into the main facility. "What is the progress of the sheep?" Dr. Briefs looked at the Saiyan over his cup of coffee. "Well, if it isn't Raditz. Good morning. Would you like some coffee?" No. Holding up his hand, declined, Raditz continued. "I actually came to check on the progress of the ship. Also, that genie isn't here, is he? That thing creeps me the hell out." Can't say I've seen the creature. However, Dr. Briefs took a sip of his coffee. The ship will be done in a week's time. Given that your father gave us a pod years ago to examine, the engine work is complete. In the meantime, why not check in with Bulma? She is working on something to do with that radar of hers, and that bizarre growth formula that was found in that Nappa, was it? His ship. I will pass. I need to train to be ready for the journey, and I want nothing to do with that Cyberman growth formula. Enough bad memories attached to that. With that, Raz began to depart the labs, determined to meet up with his father, wherever he may be, and train. However, as he left, he spotted Bulma and a blonde-haired girl he had never met before. As he stared, Dr. Briefs walked over to him and asked him a question. "Pretty nice duo, aren't they?" "I have met Bulma before. Who is this other woman with her?" "Oh, her, that's my eldest daughter, Tights." "A second daughter? Huh," said Raz with mild amusement. "Oh, well, as long as she doesn't try to have me explain technology from the Frieza Force like Bulma, all should be He paused as he realized he was talking to himself and just shook his head, upon which he noticed Tights was staring at him. She gave him a confident smirk and mouthed something at him that just confused Raditz further. However, she gave him a wink and walked off with Bulma as Bulma herself was facepalming. And it clicked. She'd been flirting with him, but who the hell is Tarzan? It made no matter to him. He had a training to get to, so no hesitation he flew away, now up on Kami's lookout. "What went wrong?" muttered Bardock angrily for what seemed to be the 100th time that day. "Where did I fail?" "Self-torture is not the path that is recommended," said Mr. Popo calmly. Instead, you should focus on what you're doing, what you have done, and what must be done. Bardock stood quietly at the genie's words, and it served as a grim reminder of what transpired. Because he had gone soft, because he had not been ready to fight a proper battle against a foe that would kill, and because he let his guard down. Kakarot, Tenshinhan, Chiaotzu, Krillin, Kami, said somberly the warrior. It was my failure that caused him to fall. Popo. Ah, damn it! Bardock punched the tiles of the lookout. I swore upon Gine's passing that I would safeguard Kakarot. When Rats arrived, I swore again I would keep him alive as well. It's the least I could do to honor her memory. If I may, Bardock, interjected the genie, if you feel so strongly of your failure, why not use your self-hate for a better purpose? While using hate to motivate is something Kami would not approve of. These are not individuals that have causes to be more deserving of your ire. And if I may ask, who is this Gine? Bardock went quiet at the mention of her name coming from another being, and then replied wistfully, Gine was my mate. She was the mother of Kakarot and Raditz. The woman was weak in power, so much that we had to take her off the team so she wouldn't die. Can't even count the number of times I had to go rescue her. But Bardock's expression darkened. When it came down to it, I had planned to send her here with Kakarot, while I distracted Frieza. But she used a cheap trick, but it saved my life and Kakarot's. Miss Gine, said Popo carefully. She sounds like she acted out of love. Try to honor her memory by bringing back your son. If you need it, I might have a way for you to train more, provided you can handle it. Once you get a grasp on what you seek to do, you may find me in the dragon room. Bardock was quiet as he pondered the genie's words. Gine, the woman who gave her life so that he and his youngest son may live, only wanted him to raise their son to be a better man. The same son who had brazenly shielded him from death's embrace and gave both Bardock and Rats a chance to win. Was the real way forward just to move on and not think about what transpired? No. He needed to carve what happened into his heart so he would never allow it to happen again. But he did have to move forward. Bardock looked around. It's about time you came to find me, said Bardock as his scatter started beeping. Raditz! Popo says that he has found a way for us to get stronger, faster, but only if we can handle it. Raditz landed and walked toward his father with determination, as this concept of getting stronger faster intrigued him. And while the idea of being around the genie creeped him out, the promise of greater strength was tempting. Did the genie actually say what it was? Asked Rast cautiously. I swear if he's just toying with us, I will blast him into oblivion. Bardock nodded and led Raditz into the lookout until they found a room with a door cracked open. The two men nodded at each other, and Bardock opened the door to reveal a room that held a pedestal with a dragon statue and 7 inserts that would hold spheres. As Bardock stared at the display, Mr. Popo walked forward and gestured to a pair of chairs. He wanted them to have a seat. As father and son proceeded to have a seat, they stared at the genie. So, you decided to seek power. Good. But I warn you that this will not be easy, and at best, you'll make it one day. At worst, you'll go mad and be broken beyond help. Bardock gritted his teeth and replied, Whatever it is, I'll take it on. Raditz gulped but nodded. If I can get strong enough to defeat Vegeta and Frieza, then count me in. What is it we're doing anyway? Popo gestured to them, and then he smiled. Follow me. And both men stood up and followed the genie. However, as they did, Raditz looked back at the pedestal, and he noticed something underneath a tarp. It looked like another dragon statue, but it had blood-red scales. Raditz shuddered at what he sensed, because it looked cursed, even more so than the genie, which said a lot to him. But he pushed it from his thoughts and moved outside. And soon they stood before another door. This is the place, said Mr. Popo. One day will pass it here, but in there, 1 year will pass. I will ask you again, do you wish to enter this room? I warn you, it can drive you mad. Bardock stared as the genie opened the door and beheld a white void beyond it. The longer he stared, the more unsure he got. What was that room? However, he shook his head and steeled himself. He was Bardock, a proud warrior who had seen much of the galaxy, fought countless battles. What was this to him? The Saiyan grit his teeth and prepared to enter the room. As for his son, Raditz had almost lost his nerve as he gazed into this white void. What was this? A ploy by the genie to indeed drive him mad? Was the increase in power worth it? Raditz closed his eyes and thought about the year he had spent getting to know his brother and reconnecting to his father and getting to know his new family. He thought to his brother's noble sacrifice and his refusal to kill him, even if it meant slaying a far more powerful foe. I will go, said Bardock. Raditz, you don't need to join me if it makes you afraid of going mad. I'll go in alone if I have to, even if I go mad. Shut up, said Raditz with fire in his eyes. You really think I will sit back and let my father face this challenge alone? And not even dare try myself? Then you have already gone mad. You got some serious stones to say that to me. Bardock grinned. All right, Raditz, let's go. And as such, both warriors walked in, and the door slammed shut behind them. Both father and son would face this trial and train, but for how long? Only time would tell. And as we pan away, Popo only smiled. Meanwhile, at Kame House. So that's the situation. I thought I sensed a great loss, but to hear it, truly it's sad for a master to outlive his students, said Master Roshi, his head bowed in remorse and loss. Yamcha nodded somberly. Yeah, there is a way to bring everyone back, but we're gonna have to leave the planet. We're gonna go to Namek, the planet Kami came from. And we're gonna see if we can use their Dragon Balls to bring everyone back. I want to know if you and maybe old Gohan could train, Kakarot's kid. Look after things here on Earth. Well, we're off planet. Man, that kind of sounds weird to say. Roshi stared up at Yamcha and shook his head. No, I will not stay behind. It's time for these old bones to be put to some good use. I will be going with you to Namek. But Master, said Yamcha shocked, you should hang back here and make sure little Gohan gets strong. Strong enough in case we fail. If you fail. The old master just chuckled. If you're willing to take the time to prepare yourself to fail, And you should use that energy to prepare yourself to achieve victory. Even if you possess the greatest strength to ever exist, Yamcha, it means nothing in the face of a superior skill and technique. Worst came to worst, I have the Mafuba as my trump card. However, I doubt it'll come to that. After all, the Namekians are peaceful like Kami, right? Yamcha was a bit surprised by this wisdom from his master, but he pushed on. Master, are you sure? I mean, we'll probably be fine, but we could run into serious trouble. I mean, Bardock and Raditz seem to think we might run into Frieza. Because, well, he told me that you guys had a plan and he used to see the future. I was wondering when he'd tell you. Yeah, he could see the future. He saw that he would have to fight Frieza on Namek. Or that Kakarot would, but Kakarot's gone. Now, said Roshi sternly, longer you stand second guessing your master, less time you have to train and prepare. Get ready, Yamcha. Mama told you 1 week, and let's use that week to train and get stronger. Right! I'll prepare myself immediately, Master! On the Capsule Corp, said Bulma, looking at the potted plant from the post behind durable stone walls.
Okay, time to test out this solution that we found in the Saiyans pot on Senzu sprouts,
Said Bulma, looking at the potted plant before her from her post behind durable walls and bulletproof glass. Bulma typed into a control panel, and a robot arm extended and poured a few drops onto a Senzu sprout that Yajirobe had brought her.
Now to wait for something, I guess.
Bulma sighed as she waited, cursing her sister for going home so soon. The scientist sat back and reclined in her office chair to stare at the ceiling absent-mindedly. She picked up one of her newly manufactured super scouters and gave it a good look over. It took her a long while to figure out, but she managed to make a scouter that can search for the Dragon Balls. Maybe Dragon Scouter would have worked better than calling it a Super Scouter. Oh well. It's not like she was going to market these things. However, as she sat there pondering, her mind went back to earlier with her sister flirting with Raditz and calling him Tarzan for some reason. Bulma sighed and just facepalmed. What was wrong with her sister?
Besides, what was her deal trying to flirt with that Raditz? She knows Launch is infatuated with him and she still does that. Wait, I wonder if.
She grumbled. But before she could finish her thought, a loud beeping caught her attention and she turned to see a monitor displaying something she did not believe. The mere sprout had become a massive plant with vines that had quickly wrapped around the robot arm, slowly crushing it under the pressure. The machinery was all but consumed, and the plant was still growing. Bulma quickly jumped up and ran to an intercom.
Huh? That is not possible. I need a security team to Lab 3 stat.
Said Bulma excitedly.
Bring my father and also a gardener and some yard equipment.
Bulma stared at the massive plant that was now sprouting senzu beans like there was no tomorrow. As she stared at the plant, a light bulb turned on in her head.
This is perfect. Now I just need to see who we have going and how effective this stuff is. Maybe how to mass produce this growth formula. It could even solve world hunger. Bulma, you are a genius!
This could be very well their ace in the hole. All she had to do was perfect this process, and they would solve so many problems going into their trip to Namek. Now, we turn our attention to Kami's lookout. It was late in the evening when Mr. Popo heard the sound of a door open on the lookout. The genie walked casually to the source of the sound and left his watering can behind. He smiled and pulled a pocket watch out and looked. $8. smiled the genie derisively. Not bad for their first time in the chamber. I wonder how they fared. The door to the chamber hung open, and standing in the door was Bardock, with Raz leaning on his father's shoulder. Both men were in bad shape, with their armor broken and clothes in tatters. Moreover, there were numerous wounds that covered them, seemingly from head to toe in such quantity it was amazing to see them standing. You did well. For a first timer, anyway. Go home and rest. Your journey will need you at your best. Bardock stumbled, barely holding himself and his son up. I'm gonna be back in a day or so. Keep that door ready for us. Popo nodded at him and saw Rats give him a glare, and then raised a fist in defiance. Both men were determined, and the genie had no doubts that they would succeed and bring back those lost to Vegeta and Nappa's actions. Mr. Popo watched both men slowly fly off and smiled. He hoped that Kami and the others who died were watching from the other side. Snake Way, 5 days later. Kakarot, said Krillin, pulling ahead of himself. This has got to be the longest road ever. How much farther we got to go again? Beats me, said Kakarot enthusiastically. But Kami did manage to convince that big guy at the desk to let us go train with King Kai. All of us. So why hang around much longer? And the sooner we get training from him, the sooner we'll be ready to be wished back. Kakarot, said Tin Shinhan stoically. You gotta be kidding me. You have not changed one day since we met. Are you not concerned about your family back home? Or the Earth? Tin Shinhan's right, chimed in Chaozu. What about Gohan? Or your dad? Or your brother? They were there too. Guys, said Kakarot calmly. We didn't see him in the check-in station, did we? That means they're still alive. And besides, Dad is too strong to go down easy, and Raj was still with him. I'm sure they won the fight. I'm kind of worried about little Gohan, but he's strong, and he's going to be scared and kind of worried. Well, I'm pretty sure that, old Gohan will look after little Gohan. Kakarot the father, said Krillin, shaking his head with amusement. Kind of a rare sight to see, but a good one. Sometimes I worry you Saiyans are too rough and tumble. Oh, come on, replied Kakarot indignantly. That was me, Krillin. I care about both Gohans and Chi-Chi, and my father. What about that brother of yours, Kakarot? Asked Tin Shinhan. I care about him, too. I don't really know him as well as the rest of my family, but he's my brother, so I care. Hey, guys. Let's get going. We probably won't make it to King Kai standing around like this. With that, the band of warriors continued to run on for the location of the great and mysterious King Kai. They ran on to achieve a power great enough to protect their planet from future threats, and with a promise they'll be brought back to life hanging unspoken in the air. Capsule Corporation, the day of the departure. Outside the iconic building in West City was a fairly large spacefaring vessel. Unlike in canon, it was not completely a ball shape, but the best way to describe it is a little bit more oval, almost like a football in a sense, with the back end possessing the engines. And it sat glittering under the morning sun. Across the side of the ship were the words Capsule Corporation Number 1. Gathered at the spaceship was a small crowd of friends and family who were seeing off the travelers. Standing before this vessel was Bardock, Raditz, Yamcha, Master Roshi, and Bulma. As they stood giving their fond farewells, Bardock noticed one person missing. Little Gohan. Hey, where's the kid? Asked Bardock to old Gohan. Is he still sore that I won't let him come with me? Yes, indeed, said the old man with a knowing smile. He had hoped to redeem himself by aiding in bringing back his father. I really think you should have taken him with you. At this, Chi-Chi, enraged that, old Gohan would say, put her little boy in danger again, opened her mouth to complain. But old Gohan put up a hand to her. She glared at him, but faltered under his glare. She backed up and looked away dejectedly. However, Ox King put a hand on her shoulder and whispered something in her ear, and she calmed down. She had to understand that her child, while still a child, was part Saiyan and would naturally seek challenge and adventure. After a drawn-out farewell, it was time to launch, and all involved latched themselves down into chairs and gave a thumbs up. All was ready to go, and a countdown began. Soon, they would journey forth across the universe to Namek and revive their friends and family.
Everyone ready? Alrighty, lift off!
Who received nods from her fellow travelers. And with that, the vessel launched off the planet. And as it cleared the atmosphere, Bardock could only wonder on the galaxy at large after all these years. After all, it had been decades since he was last off-world. However, despite all that, something was bothering him. What was with that old man's smile? In space, 5 days from Namek. All right, said Bardock, walking into the main area and raiding the gravity machine that he had Dr. Briefs install for him. Before I kick this thing on, are you all ready for this? If I am right, then we'll risk running into Frieza on Namek. Roshi briefed you on everything before we left. Yamcha nodded and replied, It might take time, but I'm down for it, boss. And if we work together, that Frieza guy's gonna go down hard. Roshi nodded as well. It could be no worse than that chamber on the lookout you spoke of. Yamcha's right. Teamwork is the key to winning against this tyrant. Bardock nodded and tapped his scouter. Alright, let's check our power levels before we get to work. Huh? Bardock paused. He looked at the readout again. And then again. This thing must be messing up. Raditz, do a scouter check. Count the power levels. Okay, very well. Raditz tapped his scouter and frowned. That cannot be right. With Barry included, that makes 5 of us. I see a 6th signature on board. Truly bizarre. Raditz kind of looked away. Bardock thought it was a little suspicious, but he shrugged, looked at everyone else, and they nodded at each other, and began searching the ship for this mysterious 6th person. Soon enough, in the cargo bay, they found him. Young Gohan had stowed away. Bardock just stared, dumbfounded, while Roshi chuckled, Yamcha rubbed his eyes, and as for Raditz, he stood behind all of them, smirking, and gave a thumb up to the kid, unbeknownst to Bardock. However, a few minutes later, and Bardock catching the thumbs up, Alright, you can't explain yourselves! Why are you on this ship? And then he looked at his son, and what do you think you're doing helping him stow away? Raditz looked at his father, dead in the eyes, and replied, Well, that old-timer pulled me aside, and he asked me to help these kids stow away. You really refuse to let him avenge his father and his failure against Vegeta? Tell me, father, would you really stand to be left behind if you were in his position? Think about it. Bardock was angered, but Raditz's words made sense to him. Either way, it's not too late to go back to Earth. I can still haul this thing back there and drop him off. I don't want to risk him getting held hostage or being put at risk. He's not ready for... Then when will I be ready? Yelled Gohan at his grandfather. Daddy protected me out of love, so why can't I bring him back? I froze back there, but I won't let him stay dead because of me. And you don't like it, then you can make me go back myself. Come on, Grandpa. Give me your best shot. As Gohan panted from the outburst, Bardock was shocked. But before the older Saiyan could open his mouth, Yamcha stepped up. Hey, boss man. I really get where you're coming from. But let the kid come. If anything, you could earn points with Chi-Chi by having him learn about another planet's people. And all I'm saying is give him a chance. And, go on, buddy. Probably don't yell at the strongest guy on our planet. Bardock just glared at them, but before he could lay into everyone involved, Roshi silenced him. Bardock, stay your anger. Bardock, stay your anger. This is an outcome that was possible. If anything, consider this your opportunity to train the boys in the way of your people. If the Earth ever came under a threat beyond your lifespan, would you not wish for your descendants to be capable of defending it? None of us live forever, Bardock. Bardock looked at them in turn and finally at Bulma, who had just walked into the room in response to all the yelling. Not to mention the fact that she could see on the cameras everyone heading down to the cargo hold. She just smiled and nodded at Bardock.
If they don't get the idea across, maybe I can,
said Bulma, hands on her hips.
The kid can't be baby forever, and honestly, you're sounding more like a mother than Chi-Chi. So I may have to teach your grandson how to fight and get strong, unless you think maybe you can't handle it.
She smirked and taunted. Bardock bristled at this. You think I'm not enough of a warrior? Fine! Gohan! Prepare yourself for the ultimate training! Bulma winked at Yamcha, who gave her a thumbs up, and she walked out of the room to the cockpit to make sure the ship made it to Namek. After all, if the ship didn't get guided to the destination, what point was there in training? Alright, get ready, Gohan. And the rest of you as well. I plan to train you till you break. Later, days later, at planet Namek, at the landing site you would see in canon.
Okay, everyone, I'm settling down,
said Bulma into the comms.
Buckle up or hang on to something.
Within minutes, the ship sat down upon the surface of planet Namek, and the people began unbuckling and unloading from the vessel. Roshi and Yamcha wobbling a bit, but, having flown into space for the first time ever, they were tired and worn out, especially from the training Bardock put them through. And despite the Senzus that Bulma had brought and cultivated, they were a little worse for wear. And as for little Gohan, he managed to somehow stay standing the whole landing, earning himself a smile and some respect from his grandfather. And despite the harsh training, the boy had persevered and even hardened his resolve to fight.
Attention, everyone,
said Bulma as she entered the main area.
Wow, this place has seen better days. Anyway, we're here to help. So help me get everything unloaded. The ship scanners showed a cave formation nearby we could use to house our base of operations.
Hey, Bulma, asked Yamcha. Do you mean to leave the ship outside for everyone to see? I mean, if Frieza and those guys are on this planet, doesn't that mean, it's kind of a sitting duck? Can you even fit that thing in a capsule?
Don't be dense, Yamcha, said
Bulma proudly.
Capsule Corp can pull something like this off, no problem. It, just takes like 10 minutes to pack away into a capsule. That is the size of a football.
Everyone looked inquisitively at the scientist as she started faltering, but shrugged and began quickly grabbing their supplies and unloading them as fast as possible. And once the ship was cleared of all necessities, Bulma began to initiate the storage of the ship. However, the very second that the ship had been stored, rats began yelling, Everyone, quickly, inside the cave! Everyone looked at him, who had been on lookout, We have several high power levels coming at us! One is massive, I think it might be Frieza! At this, they all stood shocked and terrified. But, only for a moment. They quickly dashed for the cave as quickly as they could, with Raditz grabbing Gohan as he did. The kid may be fast now, but Raditz was faster. As soon as they made it inside the cave, the power levels came upon where they once stood, and rocketed past at high speeds. After they had moved on, the men looked at each other warily, with pale complexions, and with fear, anger, worry, and dread clear to be seen on their faces. And Bulma, who could not sense power, looked at the men and then tapped her own little scouter and turned her head in the direction the power levels had gone and went pale herself.
It's 530,000 more than you can handle, Bardock. Please tell me you guys are strong enough to stand up to that.
Asked Bulma timidly. Bardock gritted his teeth and looked around at his compatriots, concern plain to see. He leaned to the side to look outside the cave and tapped his scouter. He then shook his head and sighed. Sadly, no. Even if all of us hit Frieza at the same time, we wouldn't even scratch him, said Bardock coldly. As it stands right now, our best shot would be to distract him for Roshi to use the Mafuba, or... He got a really cold glint to his eyes. If we were lucky, maybe catch him while he was sleeping and assassinate him. What if, Raditz asked carefully, what if we obtain the Dragon Balls and just use them to kill Frieza? That won't work. I asked Kami about that years ago, and the dragon can't kill off anything stronger than the creator. Hey guys, why if we just trick Frieza? You know, pull a fast one, get him off planet, you know, make him leave for now.
Yeah. Do you think we could trick him into leaving?
Bardock crossed his arms and pondered it for a moment before shaking his head. While it was a good idea in theory, in practice it would be foolish. They had no angle to work from, no resources besides what they brought. At best, maybe they could create a signal to make them leave their base for a brief time. Bardock thought more on that. That could be useful in the future. He'd have to remember that. For now, said Roshi, pulling Bardock back from his thoughts. Why not get ourselves settled in and survey the area? You do as well to get to know the lay of the land. Bardock nodded. Sounds like a plan. Let's get to it. Raditz, I want you to go survey an area that Frieza went to and take Gohan. However, prioritize safety above everything else and make sure you do not lead them back here. Roshi, I want you to stay here and guard camp and see if you and Bulma can figure out any ideas. Yamcha, you're coming with me. Bulma upgraded these scouters to have dragon radar functions, so if you find any, bring them back in, and don't fight the locals. We don't need a battle on two fronts. And if anything happens, use your scouter to reach out to the others. This isn't about honor and glory, it's about getting our family and friends back. Everyone nodded and set about their tasks. Within 30 minutes, Roshi and Bulma had the base of ops set up and were working on ideas. Raditz and Gohan set out with the younger Saiyan actually riding on his uncle's back and wearing his own little scouter. As for the remaining duo, they set off toward a Dragon Ball on the radar. Sometime later, as Raditz and Gohan traveled toward where Frieza was, they stopped, landing and slowed to a walk. According to their scouters, the largest power levels were here. Duo suppressed their own power levels and crept toward the ridge. Closer. Closer. Before dropping to the ground and crawling across it. If anyone in the modern day, us viewers, were to perceive it, you'd almost view it as a commando's crawl, sneaking up on enemy forces. And at last, they could see things down below. And this is where the events of canons, how I should say, what happened in the village in canon would take place. However, Raditz would take over explaining things. Because with him here and his knowledge of the Frieza Force members, yeah, little Gohan gets himself a little history lesson. Alright, Gohan. The one there in the little floating hover car.
Yeah?
That is Frieza.
That's Frieza?
Gohan was terrified. He could feel the evil power coming off of him. The pink one over there, the one with the spikes, that is Dodoria. He is a monster, a fiend. He has no problem killing anyone, even children. The tall one there, with the cape, that's Saban. I guess you could say he's his right-hand man. Frieza's, that is.
What about him?
Gohan was honestly terrified, but trying to hide it from his uncle.
What does he do?
Well, honestly, he kind of, passes on the work to other people. However, he is quite strong. Gohan nodded. However, it's at this time that, well, Dodoria proceeded to head towards the last remaining Namekian in the village, who would be Dende, or the one we would come to know as Dende. However, Gohan could no longer hold himself back, even with Raditz cautioning him to not do the stupid and charge in. Well, we know Gohan's general disposition in canon, and even with a Bardock in his life and a Raditz as well, he's still gonna go in there. The only difference in between what happened in canon and what happens here is, well, the Dodoria gets launched, and I do mean launched. Like, instead of just crashing into the rock formation, like, he is, let's just say, spelunking would be easier. Now, the other thing to note that changes is that Frieza gets a good look at the kid and sees, lo and behold, a Saiyan tail. Little Gohan grabs the child, known as Dende, and flies like hell. Raditz literally just stares at his nephew, rubbing his eyes. I don't know what the hell I was expecting, he muttered to himself. Damn it. And he flies off after his nephew. It's around this time that Frieza, who is now very caught off guard by seeing another Saiyan that he had no idea existed, demanded Dodoria to go deal with this.
Dodoria. What are you doing? I don't pay you to sit around. Get them! And as for the child, bring him to me. Now.
And with that, Dodoria took off flying. However, there is one little change into Dodoria's pursuit. Aside from the fact he's now chasing Raditz, Gohan, and Dende instead of Krillin, Gohan, and Dende, 2 space pods come into the planet. Now you may be wondering, Lewis, why this? Well, I figure change things up a little bit. One pod flies ahead of Raditz, Gohan, and Dende and crashes into an island in their path. As for the other pod, it almost takes Dodoria out. This causes Gohan to stop long enough for Raditz to grab hold of him. "Gohan, you moron!" said Raditz angrily, finally catching to his nephew. "Are you trying to get us killed? Remember what Father said. Prioritize safety. I understand why to aid these people, but as it is, neither of us can take on Frieza. Now!" He tapped his scouter and looked back toward Dodoria, who had stopped to see who had landed. "Oh, that's a problem."
What?
"Vegeta!"
What do we do?
asked Gohan, realizing how bad he's messed up.
What's our move, Uncle Raditz?
Raditz grit his teeth and looked toward a pod that landed ahead. "Run back to Bulma and Roshi! I'll take on whoever this is. Just get out of here, Gohan! Go!" Gohan looked at his uncle and nodded.
Right. Here, catch!
Gohan tossed 2 senzu beans to his uncle.
I'm sorry for my screw up. Come back safe.
And with that, Gohan flew on. Raditz just stared at the pod and sighed. He would have to deal with whatever was ahead of him himself, and could only hope that Dodoria would be distracted by Vegeta. And well, as the pod opened, Dodoria looked straight at Vegeta. Now mind you, in the canon, the Elder Mori managed to destroy the Scouters, so there was no way for Dodoria to know Vegeta's power level. And if you're wondering why there was no Zarbon or Frieza getting involved, well, no Scouters, how would they know? And let's be honest, when was Frieza ever the kind of man to get his hands dirty? When he has lackeys to do it for him. But let's focus on what happens next.
"Ah, Vegeta,
Said Dodoria.
what brings you out here? Looking to beg for Lord Frieza's forgiveness? Or are you here for a vacation? Or have you tried to get the Dragon Ball?"
Vegeta narrowed his eyes at Dodoria. "Well, it looks like Pinky thinks he's tough. Where's your scouter? Are Frieza's best lackeys going without these days?" Dodoria's eyes twitched.
Tell me, Vegeta. Are you here to back up the little Saiyan kid? Wait, is he yours? Did little Vegeta tell off to get a woman? Oh, Vegeta, you should have invited me to the wedding, so I could show your woman what a weakling you are.
"Ah, cram it, Bubblegum. Tell me more about that kid, though."
Make me tough, guy.
From here, the events of canon take place for Dodoria and Vegeta's battle, minus any mention of Qui. And speaking of Qui, meanwhile, Vegeta and Dodoria fought. Rat sat on a boulder watching the space pod door as it opened. The Saiyan was tossing a rock up and down in the air, his eyes never leaving the pod door. However, the moment the door had fully opened, Raditz caught the stone and gripped it tightly. And stood. The pod's occupant emerged and looked around before locking onto Raditz. He was a purple alien that, in canon, was only seen briefly. And I do mean briefly, before Vegeta turned him to ash. This was the being known as Qui. And he had a look of pure shock on his face at the sight of Raditz, of all people, looking right at him. And as Qui stepped away from his pod, Raditz flung the stone in his hand and bullseyed the scouter on Qui's head, destroying it in one hit. "Ah!" cried Qui in shock as the scouter turned to scrap. "What the hell, Raditz? Are you wanting to die?" "Oh no!" said mockingly. "I've angered the mighty bootlicker Qui. Oh no! He's going to punish me. Oh, save it, you cowardly toady."
I guess being off the grid for so long made you go crazy, Raditz,
said Qui angrily.
Where have you been? Where'd you get that, Scouter? And why are you here? Did you come to die? Did you come to beg me for forgiveness, the great and mighty Quee?
Raditz just smirked and retorted with sarcastic air. Well, you see, I killed Nappa, and I got to thinking to myself, Raditz, who has pissed you off? Oh, right, this Quee. So I started going planet to planet, hoping to see you again. And look, here we are, reunited at last. Karma's gonna be a bitch.
You? Questioned Quee. You killed Nappa? Bah, Vegeta told me that he killed him for being useless, and I think you're out of your mind. What was your power level again? 1,500? Mine rivals Vegeta at 18,000. I hope you're ready to die, monkey.
Nah, said Raditz with a sadistic smirk. I'm on a mission to save my brother. So, you get to die. Before Quee could react, Raditz dashed forward at high speeds, aiming a punch at the alien's face. However, Quee jumped back to dodge, unleashing a barrage of ki blasts. However, Raditz moved with him and just slapped the ki blasts away, sending them careening into the scenery around them. And, well, Raditz lunged in and slammed his feet hard into Quee's stomach, rocketing him skyward. "Ah!" cried Quee in pain. How are you keeping up with me? Before Quee could get a response in verbal form, Raditz uppercutted him, followed by a backhand. And before Quee's body could fly further away, Raditz grabbed him by the boot and body slammed him, face first into the ground. Raditz stood there for a moment, and he heard mumbling. Raditz let go of the man's boot, walked over, and grabbed him by the neck, lifting him out of the ground, flipping him around in midair, and grabbing him by the throat. The Saiyan brought the alien up to eye level, and then tapped his scouter. At this close range, Quee could see what he was doing. It was a self-diagnostic. And at close range, Quee could see the numbers. And as the numbers came to a stop, the color drained from Quee's face. His eyes went dead, and the fight left him. How? Said Quee in shock. Just how did you go from a nothing Cyberman could be to this? His eyes reread the numbers on the scouter over and over. It was impossible. How is it your power's over 19,000? It's simple, really, said Raditz coldly. I did not waste my time licking boots and trying to gain favor. I applied myself. I trained. Let me tell you something. When you have a reason to grow in strength, you can reach great heights. However, Raditz grinned evilly. This is as high as you climb, Quee. Wait, stop! Cried Quee in fear. We can work together. Yeah, we can team up and take out Frieza and Vegeta alike. How pathetic, said Raditz lowly in disgust under his breath. He was actually mortified for this man. You went from a prideful being, boasting of your power, to a sniveling coward so fast. And the fact that you think I find you worth keeping around? It's a sad joke, really. And one I would deliver the punchline on. Goodbye, Quee. With that, Raditz tosses Quee into the air, and before he can respond, Raditz brings the fight to a close. Saturday Crush! With that, Quee became nothing but a memory. Damn it! I need to catch up with Gohan! Hopefully Vegeta can distract Dodoria long enough for me to get to him. With that, Raditz took off and left to rejoin the others. leaving only a space pod, some craters, and destroyed scenery in general as only a memory and a marker that anyone had been there. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Bardock and Yamcha arrived at the outskirts of a Namekian village, and upon their arrival, they were met with stares, which is understandable, really. After all, these were the first non-Namekians that these people had ever seen. And as the two men walked forward, doing their best to ignore the stares, they were confronted by an elderly-looking Namekian. "Greetings, outsider," said the elder. "What brings you to our world and our village?" Bardock looked at the Namekian, looked him dead in the eye, and then he let out a sigh. "We came to your world to ask for help. We want to use your Dragon Balls." The Namekians around them bristled at the mention of the Dragon Balls, and a few seemed to take stance, ready to fight. Even more so, others began whispering amongst themselves. Who were these outsiders? How dare they show up out of the blue and demand the Dragon Balls? Yamcha just glanced at them for a moment and whispered to Bardock, Hey, boss? You think this is a good idea?" "I don't think they want us here." Bardock ignored him. And the elderly Namekian raised his hand and smiled warmly at Yamcha, trying his best to reassure the human. "Well, since you know of the Dragon Balls," he began, "I take it you also know what they are used for." Bardock nodded at him. "Since that is a fact that you know as well, know that we cannot freely offer them up, especially when an outsider arrives. They are sacred to us. So I must ask you, why is it you want them?" Bardock met the elder's steely stare with his own, and before he could respond, Yamcha jumped in. Recently our world came under attack by some evil guys. The guardian of our world was a Namekian who created Dragon Balls, but he fell in battle. These evil men took his life and killed some of our friends and family. We just want to bring him back." The elderly Namekian looked at Yamcha's earnest stare, and then back to Bardock's steely one. "I see. I am sorry for the losses you have suffered. If I may ask, who is it you lost, warrior?" "The human over here. This gentleman here speaks of friends and family." Bardock closed his eyes and replied, "I have lost many in my life. Friends, my homeworld, my mate, and recently, my youngest son. I ask for you to let me use your world's Dragon Balls. I just want to bring him back. Bring all my friends back that I can. I just want to live a life of peace with him. That way I can just live, train, and spar." Both Yamcha and the elderly Namekian eyed Bardock with sympathy. To Yamcha, who had known Bardock for years now, he had never heard him mention his mate. He assumed it was the mother of Rats and Kakarot, judging by how all three Saiyan men behaved when a mother was mentioned. To the Namekian elder, he could feel the grief and sorrow. But this man before him reeked of blood. "If I offered it to you," said the elder carefully, "what would you do after your wish
Will you leave us in peace, or do you seek more bloodshed after all? I am not naive, nor am I a fool. I can tell you have taken many lives.
Bardock nodded. It's true. I have the blood of many on my hands. To that, the Namekians who were already in stance began moving forward, ready to strike. However, the elder held his hand up, stopping them. I have killed so many in this life. It's beyond my count. However, I have lived my last couple of decades atoning for it all. All I want, like I said, is a life of peace.
The elder Namekian went silent, pondering, contemplating, and praising Bardock's words. After a minute that lasted eternity, he nodded. Despite shocked responses, he went forth and brought the Dragon Ball before them. And as the two men stared at the Dragon Ball, the elder smiled. Should you revive your Namekian friend, bring him to our world, his world. He should at least once in his lifetime stand on his home world and walk amongst his people. Bardock smiled at this and nodded. Yamcha gave him a thumbs up, which kind of confused the Namekians, but they returned the gesture. Yamcha took the Dragon Ball, and the duo took off. However, as they did, they marveled at the large orb that Yamcha held.
Huh. Don't remember him being that big. Yeah. I mean, I kind of remember him being like, small, like, baseball sized.
Well, they flew off. But little did they know, elsewhere on planet Namek, a village lay in ruins with a solitary man walking amongst the carnage. This man was Vegeta. He had slain everyone in the village and claimed their Dragon Ball. They had annoyed them with their talk of sacred artifacts and how he was evil incarnate. What did it matter to him? Immortality would be his, and so would Frieza's throne. Elsewhere, the very self-same tyrant, Frieza, sat in his ship, in his observation room, staring outward at the landscape of planet Namek. Annoyance plain to see on his face. He kept replaying the incident at that village. The small child that had attacked Dodoria and ran off with the Namekian. He was a Saiyan. Had more than he expected survived, or maybe, just maybe. He scratched the side of his face. Not entirely sure if he was right, but perhaps it was a child of one of his surviving Saiyans. I doubt it's that coward Raditz. No, it couldn't be that idiot Nappa. That oof would know a woman from a rock. Perhaps it is Vegeta's child. That filthy monkey did run off without my permission. However, maybe I'll grant him a mercy. After all, it's because of him I knew about the Dragon Balls. No, he was very quick to talk about usurping me. Frieza grinned coldly. Death it is. Perhaps that child can be converted into a faithless servant. It'd be quite a novelty to have one of those Saiyans as a pet. Frieza was quiet for a moment, thinking harder about the Saiyan child and Vegeta. Dodoria had never come back from his chase. He still had Zarbon on hand, but the more he thought about it, the more he became wary. Zarbon, Dodoria has yet to return. Go look for that Saiyan child and Dodoria. I have a feeling. No, I am fairly certain that child is Vegeta's. He should be on this planet. If you see Vegeta, kill him. However, bring me the child. Alive. I want a new pet.
Yes, sir, Lord Frieza, said Zarbon loyally. Shall I have the men search the immediate area for the Dragon Balls?
Yes. In the meantime, I'm going to call for some more men. No, just 5 men. I have a feeling the Ginyu Force will be required.
Lord Frieza, said Zarbon indignantly, I am more than capable of handling this situation.
Are you questioning my decision, Zarbon? Answer carefully now.
No, sir, Lord Frieza. I'll take care of it immediately.
With that, Zarbon departed. Frieza frowned and then glowered at the idea of having to call in the Ginyu Force. They were quite eccentric, and Captain Ginyu even more so. However, as things stood, he wanted all hands on deck. Time to make a call. This is normally where I would end it. However, on King Kai's planet,
Are you sure you're ready for this technique?
asked King Kai.
I mean, you guys are strong, fast, and for the most part, have a pretty good sense of humor.
King Kai glanced at Ten Shinhan, who just coughed awkwardly.
However, you want me to teach you everything in a week?
Yes, sir, said Kakarot. I need to learn and train as much as possible, King Kai. My father wanted me to get strong, as strong as possible. And, well, Kami, he talked the big guy at the desk to let us come out here. So, we want to learn all you can teach us, King Kai. And we want to learn it as fast as possible. Right, guys?
Everyone nodded in agreement. King Kai was curious. Sure, he could just look into affairs in the mortal world, but he wanted to hear it.
So, why you want to get so strong, huh?
Well, you see, I want to be able to defeat Vegeta if he ever comes back to Earth. And, besides, there's some evil guy that Father kept mentioning. In case he ever came coming, in case he ever showed up, I want to be able to defeat him.
Who's that?
Guys, do you remember who Father said?
The others just rubbed their eyes. King Kai just shook his head.
No matter. But if we do this, I want you to know that I won't be responsible for anything that happens to you. You're being reckless. But I'll teach you what I can, so get ready, guys. Prepare yourselves.
Everyone cheered. Meanwhile, somewhere out in space, a certain man sat in a very overstuffed chair. He looked at reports before him, noting that Frieza had just put out a call for the Ginyu Force. He smiled at this and reclined backward. Got himself in over his head, did he? Oh well, he'll learn the hard way. After all, sometimes you had to learn your lessons the hard way. If he can't keep track of his own men, can't manage his resources well, then I guess it's time that he be taught a lesson the hard way. After all, Daddy knows best. And with that, if you enjoyed this what if content, then please leave a like. Comment down below what you'd like to see next. And if you have yet to, I implore you to subscribe. This has been an interesting ride so far. And honestly, I'm pretty hyped to continue this. I want to see where things go from part 7 on. And let's just say I am planning for some reintroductions, some introductions, and potentially maybe even a new foe. But all that comes in time. So in the meantime, folks, I will see you all in the next video.